It was October the 16th, 1939, just 6 weeks after the start of the Second World War, that the Luftwaffe launched their daring raid. Setting off from the island of Slint on the Danish border, crossing the North Sea, the bombing formations comprised 12 of the Germans' new Junkers Ju-88 dive bombers. Tasked with the sinking of the Royal Navy flagship HMS Hood, they had mistaken for a battleship steaming west for Rosyth dockyard. Hermann Göring, Reich Marshal of Aviation, believed Scotland would be relatively undefended because the RAF would concentrate its fighter forces around London and the south of England. Although proportionally correct, he had greatly underestimated the British desire to defend their homeland. Crucially, he assured his pilots that in Scotland they would not face the British fighter his crews had been led to fear, the Spitfire. With a powerful Rolls-Royce Merlin engine and 8 Browning machine guns each firing up to 600 rounds a minute, the Supermarine Spitfire was born to fight. Its power, matched by a beautiful streamlined design that offered those flying Spitfires a unique feel for their aircraft, often giving them the edge against opponents in high-speed dogfights. From that day forward, the sheer brilliance of this iconic aircraft was its capacity for constant development and to provide air superiority not only in the sky over the United Kingdom, but in every theatre of World War II. As the German formation approached the Firth of Forth, they were tracked by the RAF's newly developed top-secret early warning system, known then as radio direction finding, but later radar. The nearest facility in Coldingham in Berwickshire unfortunately went down just before the raid, and as a result, detailed information from the more distant sites was scant. The German pilots found to their disappointment the flagship Hood was already safely docked at Rosyth and out of their reach. So the main body of bombers chose instead to drop their payload on 2 Royal Navy cruisers at anchor near the Forth Bridge. In a later phase of the raid, a destroyer steaming west to Rosyth was also attacked. Although no bombs exploded on the 3 ships, nearby detonations created deadly shrapnel that killed 16 and injured another 47 seamen on HMS Mohawk, the destroyer. The RAF had a red section of Edinburgh's 603 Squadron in the air from Turnhouse, now Edinburgh Airport, while the yellow section soon took off with 3 intruders in sight. Blue and green section of Glasgow's 602 Squadron, then based at Drem in East Lothian, were also in the air flying combat patrols to intercept and engage the German aircraft. As the two sides met, dogfights ensued. The superior speed and manoeuvrability of the Spitfires soon scattered the German formations, sending their aircraft in all directions, relentlessly pursued by the British fighters. Spitfires chased the bombers across land and sea, and initially damaged by long-range fire from 603's yellow section. The first German plane lost was again attacked over Wallingford, Prestonpans and Cockenzie by red section, before crashing into the Forth somewhere off Port Seaton. Moments later, a second aircraft, the unit commander, was shot out the sky near Crail by blue section from 602. So close in fact that to his dying day the Spitfire pilot involved never quite accepted that his had not been the first kill. It remains the subject of squadron banter to this day. The Spitfires had terrified returning Luftwaffe crews who had been attacked. A vote was called among the crew of one badly damaged bomber who, to a man, elected to take their chances ditching their Junkers in the icy waters of the North Sea, even in darkness. Even with this little chance of survival, the alternative to return and face the Spitfires again while attempting to surrender was just too terrifying. So determined were the British pilots, and so ferocious their Spitfires, the Luftwaffe had their first taste of what they could expect in the months to come. So apprehensive did the Germans become, the Firth estuary became known as a suicide corner amongst their ranks. Soon, rumours of the captured German prisoners spread through the country, and the reports 3 Luftwaffe officers rescued by the Port Seaton fishermen from the first bomber were soon confirmed. For only later was it learned that another Port Seaton boat had saved the second crew's injured survivors. The survivors would later give thanks to their rescuers and recall how well they had been treated. The crewmen whose bodies had been recovered were given full military funerals at Portobello 3 days later. 3 others remain with the wrecks of the aircraft under the waters of the Forth estuary. The 16 seamen who died aboard the HMS Mohawk were also given a full military funeral. No loss of life can ever be truly celebrated. But the events of the 16th of October, though far from textbook, for that had yet to be written, were a triumph for the fighter command who had outflown and defeated the Luftwaffe. So what was the impact of this little-known historical event? Firstly, there was a psychological effect. Only 6 weeks into the war, the British public would have heard wireless accounts and very likely seen newsreel films of the increasingly threatening Nazi war machine expanding across Europe. But with this, the first air raid over the skies of the UK, came the realisation the war had come home. For those who had witnessed it, and to those who had later heard of it even, the fact that they were at war had suddenly become very real. While this would have scared many civilians, this battle stood as an example of British courage and heroism. At a moment's notice, pilots were scrambled to meet their adversaries before driving them back into an icy sea. Some became the first prisoners of war taken in the United Kingdom, while the heroics displayed earned 2 Spitfire pilots the Distinguished Flying Cross, the first earned by RAF's Fighter Command during World War II. It also saw the Royal Navy's first award of the soon-to-be-created George Cross of the conflict. Although the defence put up during the raid had averted both large-scale casualties and major damage to the Royal Navy shipping, it did expose significant flaws in Britain's aerial defence. This was among the first time radar was used to assist in air combat, the first successfully, but nevertheless the system would have to be improved. Moreover, the speed of the interception by Fighter Command's aircraft during this incident, though imperfect, pointed the way forward, and it was crucial to a British victory. This was also to be the first successful deployment of the soon-to-be iconic Spitfire. For the aircraft's climb rate, manoeuvrability, speed, and firepower became invaluable to RAF pilots. These brave men didn't simply climb into a Spitfire, but actually wore their machine, as in that instant they became one. With the Battle of Britain just 9 months away, the air raid over the Firth of Forth marked an important moment in British history. Since 55 BC, the British Isles had faced the onslaught of enemies seeking to harm its population and claim its lands. Here, for the first time, a significant threat had come from the sky. Clearly, the military would have to adapt to combat this aspect of war to defend the freedom of its people. With great foresight, Air Vice Marshal Hugh Dowding, a Moffat-born Scot, had done much of the groundwork just before the conflict began by creating the integral command and control system that was the RAF Fighter Command. During the Battle of Britain, this was to become the most significant force multiplier in the history of war. But on the 16th of October 1939, the British people had first shown the spirit not only to secure aerial superiority over the United Kingdom and ultimate victory, but the compassion to ensure a lasting peace. How can we make sure this event is not forgotten? The Coastal Regeneration Forum plans to erect monuments to stand on the green hills between the boroughs of Prestonpans, Cockenzie and Portseaton. The monuments are modelled on the concrete tank traps found along East Lothian's coastline and will offer seating to those who look to the sky where this inspiring event took place. For more information on how you can support this project or how you may get involved, visit spitfireproject.com. You can also participate in any Coastal Regeneration Forum meetings when these are held at the Portseaton Community Centre. More information on these can be found at coastalregeneration.wordpress.com or email crf.spitfire@gmail.com.